Welcome to Bedford School, and I'm sorry this is such a strange way to come and see it for the first time. What would normally happen is that you would come and sit in my office for half an hour and we'd have a chat about the school generally, and hopefully you'd find out as much as you wanted to from me before going off on a tour with a boy, which is much more fun, I might say, than what we're about to have. So if you do want to come and do that at some stage in the future, please do come along anyway, and I'll very much look forward to meeting you in person. What we're going to do today is I'm going to give you the tour myself. We'll start in a moment in the Great Hall, and then we'll be joined by Joe, who's going to pretend to be a prospective parent for the morning, and hopefully we'll find out a few things that way that will fire your enthusiasm to come and visit us in person. So here we are, we're about to go into the Great Hall, which is my first choice for heart of the school, if you like. And you can see behind me, just before we do go in, three crests. One's a crest of the school, another one is a crest of Bedford, the town, and the third is the crest of New College, Oxford, with whom we have a very long history. So in 1552, when the first headmaster was appointed, there was already a school in Bedford. In fact, a lot of people say it was the same school, it goes back to the 12th century, which would make us one of the oldest schools in the country. And that headmaster was a man called Edmund Green. He was a New College man. And it was set into a letters patent by Edward VI that from there onwards, New College would appoint all the headmasters. And they did just that until the turn of the last century, when the first headmaster was appointed, which was not a New College man. But we still have a New College connection through the Harper Trust. There has to be an appointee to the Harper Trust, and there has to be an appointee to our governing body. So that connection goes on. And rather nicely, a couple of years ago, the newly appointed warden of New College was himself an old Bedfordian, and it was amazing to have Miles Young in position back in Oxford on our behalf, in a sense. So that's wonderful. So you've come into the Great Hall at the strangest of times, because behind me you can see a couple of people who are not taking their lunch break and working on through to open all of Captain Tom Moore's birthday cards in time for April the 30th. It's been quite an extraordinary few days since school should have started in here with a start of school assembly. What happened instead was that I gave an online assembly, which the boys listened to, and we received delivery of about 30,000 birthday cards to open up for Captain Moore and his family. We've now got, I think, probably 100-odd thousand. I think it is 150,000 apparently birthday cards. We are making our way through them, but it's taken quite a long time. This room has seen some history. In fact, this entire building has. In 1979, the building burnt down. It was burnt down by a local arsonist who'd done a few other buildings in Bedford. This was his sort of pièce de la résistance, I suppose. And he was jailed, in fact, for life, and came out not all that long ago. But the building burnt down on a Saturday night, and it's gone into folklore really at Bedford School, because on Monday morning there was a notice outside Bedford School which simply said school on as normal, and on Sunday the timetabler had sat down with his pieces of paper and reallocated all the lessons to various different parts of the school, the buildings, some of which you've seen, the pavilion, sports hall, boarding houses and so on. And school just carried on as normal. And that, I think, is the kind of place that we are. We're a get up and get on with it sort of place. And it feels quite frustrating actually at the moment that we haven't got boys here when we managed to go on when the whole building's burnt down. But that's just the way it is. We have stayed open for key workers, and we've had a few of them coming in, but it feels very sadly empty. We meet in here as a whole school 3 times a week. Twice a week, actually, on Monday and Friday for assemblies. Now, it's pretty unusual for a senior school to have headmasters' assemblies twice a week, where I get a chance to address the whole school. And I think that has a pretty profound effect on the school as well, because it brings us all together as a community. We all hear the same things together. We all get a chance to walk away from assembly and comment on same things together. And we sing together, and it's a school that loves its singing, and You'll see in a moment when we go off to the chapel that we sing all the great hymns there, but we also sing the great hymns in this building. And boys remember this for the rest of their lives. They get very emotional about it when they're in the upper sixth and they're having their last few assemblies and they're belting out their favourite hymns, and it's really quite a remarkable sound. We also hold a whole load of other events, as you can imagine here, from dinners to weddings to talks and lectures and so on. So it's a really important space for us, and something that very much gets under your skin, I think. So we're about to enter the second heart of the school, I think, and that's the Memorial Hall, which was given to the school by the Old Bedfordians in 1926 to commemorate all who died during the First World War. 456 Old Bedfordians died in the First World War, more than there were boys at the school at the time. So an extraordinary number. And in fact, 756 died across 2 world wars, and this was later dedicated to their memory as well. And I think this says a lot about the school in a lot of different ways, which I'll tell you about in just a second. So all of our Year 9 boys, when they come to the school, have a tour of this building and have a history lesson up here, so that they get to understand a little bit of the past of this school. And you'll see what they come into in just a second.
So what does this room mean to the school?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty awesome room all round. It's a beautiful room for a start, but it also serves to remind us all the sacrifices that Old Bedfordians made, often at ages which are only a year or two beyond the age of the boys who are currently at the school. The room obviously comes into its own at Remembrance Sunday time, but we use it for all sorts of other things too, and it's a special room to gather in. I think that there's a couple of things probably to pick up on from today's perspective. One is that the Old Bedfordian Club is an unbelievable club for the school. It's been going for about 128 years now. I think 3 years ago we had their 125th anniversary, and we had dinners all around the world. They were great fun. We had over 1,000, well, probably nearer 2,000 actually, Old Bedfordians re-engaging with the school at that time. And these are people who feel very strongly about their education here and want to give back to the boys and to the school. And they've done so in all sorts of different ways, be that through coming in and lecturing to boys, or offering work experience in their own workplaces, or financially as well. And we've been very, very lucky with them over the years, and we feel very strongly about them. So boys who come to this school don't just come for their 2, 6, 10 years, whatever it might be. They really are here for life, and that's pretty special. I think the second thing about this room is just the notion of service, which has been ingrained in the school for many, many years. We still have boys going off pretty much every year into the forces, but actually more importantly, we feel a real sense of duty towards the local town that we're part of. And so that manifests itself in every boy, actually, at some stage during their time at the school, doing something meaningful to support and partner with our local community. And that can take all sorts of different faces, but the boys really love doing it. And they go out and help in local primary schools, or they go out and help in local care homes and so on. And they're even doing it actually during the lockdown, which is marvellous. So I think this room, in many ways, embodies what we try to do today, 80 or 90 years on. So we're about to go into the chapel, which was built by Bodley, great Victorian architect at the beginning of the 20th century. This is our my third heart to the school, if you like, and I look forward to taking you around. This is a really lovely building, and it's a building that really gets under the skin, I think, of all Bedfordians, regardless of whether they feel religious in a Christian sense or any other sense, or not religious at all. We meet here every week as a whole school, or close to, as we can get to a whole school. We have to have one year group, unfortunately, sitting out each time and having a different assembly because it gets too full on Wednesday lunchtimes. And then we have a singing practice on Friday, and the boarders have Sunday services in here every week. It becomes a place that Bedfordians come back to, and many of them get married here. Sadly, many of them have their, or happily maybe, I don't know, at the end of their life, many of them have funerals here which bring old friends back together again. It's something that we feel very proud of. We have the most amazing chapel choir. A lot of choristers from choir prep schools come through this school, whether in the UK, so places like St Paul's and Westminster Abbey, or in Cambridge, King's and John's, or even overseas as well. We've had some wonderful German choristers in recent years. And a choir of 50 in an all-boys school, a chapel choir of 50 in an all-boys school, I think is really remarkable. And they also tour the country, and they go and sing in various different cathedrals. They go off to Europe sometimes on every other year, I think, on tours. And a couple of years ago, they were the only robed choir singing at the Albert Hall in the Festival of Remembrance in front of the Queen and the Prime Minister and so on, which was a really special occasion. So we've got a great tradition of music, chapel music in particular. We've got an amazing organ. We've got some brilliant boy organists. And as I say, this just becomes, I think, part of you as you make your way through the school. So we're about to go into the music school, which was put up in 2005, so it's a pretty new building for us. In fact, it was the start of probably a full decade of significant building at the school. Music's really important to this school. We've got a lot of it. Again, all standards and qualities, but we believe strongly in the power of music to help pupils grow themselves. And there's about 450 music lessons a week here. And when I last did a count, we had 104 concerts or services in one Lent term. That was a couple of years ago. And I believe the number's still pretty similar today. So this is an important building for us. So we have 9 full-time music teachers and a whole host of peripatetic teachers. And as I say, half the school learning musical instruments. And they're all housed in this building, which contains a lot of practice rooms, a recital hall, which we'll go and have a look at in a second, recording studios, various tech suites, and in fact, music technology is really big here. We have a full-time music technologist, one, and others who dabble as well. The boys are particularly brilliant at it, and we always have somebody going off to do music technology after school, and stay in touch with the school, actually, and help us in various productions. We also have boys who go off to conservatoires most years, so the standard is high. We've got also in this building a radio station, which was paid for by the Bedford School Trust, which is a trust which has been built up since 1926 and is a home for a lot of generosity from old Bedfordians and parents and families over the years, and provides the sorts of things for the school which are kind of icing on the cake, really. And a radio station was one of those. It came actually out of a competition that the Bedford School Trust devised, where they said to the boys, we're prepared to spend 40,000 quid on something at the school. What would you do it on? And some boys got together. There were a whole load of bids, as you can imagine. But some boys got together and decided they wanted to run a radio station. So the equipment up there is pretty phenomenal. Anyway, I'll take you into the recital hall. So this is one of a number of halls in the school which hold a variety of different numbers of people. In here we can have about 150 odd people. We hold concerts in here, of course, but we do a reasonable number of other things too. The story goes that the previous director of music, who loved his cricket, was determined that this building would be facing the cricket square so that he could keep an eye on the scoreboard as the day went on. And in fact, a lot of that remains, because when we hold a concert in here every Thursday lunchtime, and we do this for pretty much all boys in the school who at some stage get a chance to perform on a Thursday lunchtime concert. You'll regularly get boys coming in cricket whites or in rugby uniform to come and play their piece and then disappear off to the next thing. So it's important to us that we can facilitate a whole range of different talents in the same person, and that they don't have to give up one thing to concentrate on another. So I haven't included this building behind me in one of my 3 hearts of the school, and I can just imagine there'd be a whole load of current and old Bedfordians who'd be up in arms at me not including our cricket pavilion, which of course doubles as a rugby pavilion in the winter term. I mean, this is the heart of our sport, and Bedford has loved its sport for very many years, and so do I, frankly. In fact, I'm slightly surprised myself I haven't included it in the top few. It is a special place. We have sport here which throughout the ages I think has been right up there with the best in the country. But we're also very keen that we provide sport for every single boy for exactly the same reasons, essentially. The reasons that are transferable to life skills, no matter whether you're playing in an A team or an E team or an F team. Boys here have to play sport on Tuesday, Thursday afternoons at the very least, and if you want to play sport pretty much every minute of the day outside lesson time all the way through the week, if you're that way inclined, you can do that too. So it is an amazing place to come from that perspective, and particularly on a day like today when the sun's shining and the grounds are looking magnificent. There are very few better places to be in the world, I reckon. Well, welcome to the Alistair Cook room. He's probably our most famous old Bedfordian at the moment, and we had this transformed a few years ago. My predecessor did a great job on it, obviously. We've had so many well-known old Bedfordians or Bedford-related sportsmen. Most of the cricketers will have heard of Alistair Cook, of course. Over there on the far wall, we've got Alistair Cook's cricket bat next to Jack Hobbs's cricket bat, which is amazing. If you chose an England all-time 11, they'd probably open the batting together. Jack Hobbs was a groundsman here, would you believe, early in the 20th century, before he scored his 61,000 first-class runs. We've also had a lot of people who are famous for all sorts of other things around these walls, and you can see up on the walls here all the teams of the past. There's a man just up here who I recognised not very long ago and ended up coming to do a speech day for us, who is, for instance, editor of the Times, which is quite fun. And outside here, we've got a little photo gallery of all those who played international sport. We've had 24 rugby internationals, a whole load of cricketers and rowers and hockey players and so on. So it's a pretty exciting place to come if you love your sport. If you don't love your sport, as I said before, it really doesn't matter, because we've got all standards here, and we aim to enjoy what we're doing, no matter what standard we're playing at. So as a classicist, I'm completely out of my comfort zone in this department. This is the science block. But as a school, we're really strong on science and maths and design technology. We have a lot of boys who want to go off and do those sorts of things at universities, and we've got a good number of offers from Oxford and Cambridge in the last couple of years that have come from those subjects. We also have our only Nobel laureate, who is up here on the wall, Archer Martin, who won his Nobel laureate for his work in science. And a really big team here in a department that's been completely refreshed 4 or 5 years ago, when we spent a lot of money on this building. Rather than knock it down and start again from scratch, we've done a great job, I think, in renovating the whole thing. So another beautiful building. We're in the library, and I thought we might talk about a couple of slightly different things in here. First of all, this is a building for everybody. Like a lot of the things that we do at Bedford School, when your son joins the school, they join a house, might be a day house, might be a boarding house. And within those houses, they join a tutor group. And the tutor groups and the houses are organised vertically, so that every tutor group will have about a dozen pupils in it. They'll have boys from the upper sixth right down to boys in year 9, what we call the fourth form. And they meet every morning with their tutor to start the day. So they start their day in a group of mixed age boys, and that atmosphere kind of permeates the entire school. And the older ones, learn to look after the younger ones, and the younger ones learn to look up to the older ones and take their turn in a few years' time. And it's an incredibly supportive place. I think the Good Schools Guide called it a brotherly atmosphere when they came earlier this year. And they're absolutely right. It is a brotherly atmosphere. And this building is used by boys right at the bottom of the school, right up to those at the top of the school and in important exam years. So they learn not only to, when they come into the school, not only to have respect for the fact that the boys are going through their exam years, but also they see it. And I think this is, this is healthy. Also, it's quite a good place to talk about artwork. The school has the most phenomenal art collection on its walls, and art is another thing that I think I feel very strongly about in an all-boys school. In some ways, sport, you know that we've got 1,100 boys here. You know that there's going to be good sport, and we do obviously take a lot of time and energy in that direction. But the arts are always being promoted, and I'm really delighted to say that the boys here see an artist, a good artist, if you like, in exactly the same light as they would see a good sportsman or someone who's good at academic work and so on. So you can excel in a whole load of different things here and be rewarded with the sort of praise and that you deserve. Now, some of our art is housed in here, some of our art is housed in corridors around the school, some, of course, in the art department, but we try to spread it around everywhere so that everyone can share in a nice environment. In the sports hall, as you can see, behind me through these windows here and down a level is the swimming pool. We're in a gym which was given to us very generously by an old Bedfordian a few years ago. It's pretty well equipped, and a lot of the boys spend quite a lot of time in here, particularly rowers and rugby players, as you can imagine. We're going to go on through the upstairs of the sports hall now. We've got 4 squash courts down either side here, and then we come into the main hall at the end, where at the top we have table tennis tables. We have quite a lot of table tennis players. And a sports hall which at the moment we're doing a fair bit of work to. So what you probably wouldn't notice would be we've got a new roof to the hall. We've got a whole load of new lighting. We're just doing the floor, so there are no lines on the floor at the moment. There will be hopefully in the next week or two, but it's a brand new floor. We're going to be doing some new decoration around the hall. And we've got slightly grander designs on that front as well. The hall's been here quite a long time, but ultimately a sports hall is a big space, and we're going to make this space as good as it possibly can be. We've got 6 cricket nets down there and about 15 or 16 cricket nets outside, half of which are hard and half of which are grass nets. So the cricketers are pretty well catered for in the winter. And in the summer we've got basketball in here. We play indoor hockey in here, we play indoor football in here, play a lot of badminton in here. And we're good at badminton actually. We're good at most sports, so we're lucky like that. But we've got some really strong badminton players at the moment coming up through the prep school. They tend to win the national prep school championships, and then into the upper part of the school where they do very well too. So that's the sports hall. See, we're in the art department, and this art department is I don't know if it's unique, but it's definitely pretty unusual. We run it in a very specialist way. So the boys will do some printmaking, some sculpture and some painting whilst they're here in each year group, and they'll rotate through. And what that means is that we can hire as staff specialist sculptors, specialist printmakers and specialist painters. So we feel pretty blessed with that, and I think it's definitely a unique selling point for staff members when they apply to the school, because often you'll find somebody who's a real sculptor specialist who that's what they really want to do and they're fanatical about it, and this comes through to the boys when they're here. It's also a wonderfully pastoral department. Always has been here, funnily enough. We have a lot of old teachers from the art department coming back to the school all the time, and they're very fond of the place. But they're fond of the boys here, and the boys who do art spend obviously a lot of time in this building on various different floors of it. And they're very, very well looked after by the staff here who really enjoy their time with them. So this is one of my favourite parts of the school, in fact. So you'll see the art department that we were just in on my right here, 2 floors of the art department up there, and on my left is the sculpture part of the art department, and behind me is a sculpture garden. So this is where they would display their artwork. And all around us there are 3 day houses as well, which is where a lot of the day boys will come back to at break time and certainly turn up at the start of the day so that they can see their housemaster and sort out their kit in their lockers and that sort of thing. The sculpture department is next due for renovation, hopefully still this summer, largely because we can do so on the back of a really generous donation from a man called Gilbert Lloyd. Gilbert Lloyd is an old Bedfordian who runs all the Marlborough galleries around the world, and he's been very generous to us, and particularly to our art at the school. So hopefully that will still go ahead in the summer. He also has enabled us to host 4 or 5, in fact it's often 6 lectures a year at the school by top artists from all around the country and abroad, who come and speak to anybody who wants to come along from both the school and the local community, and we usually get a very good turnout for those. Indeed, our very own Will Gompertz, who's also an OB and who is the BBC Arts Editor, has come to do a couple of these himself and did an anniversary Gilbert Lloyd lecture only a year ago in our Great Hall, and it was an absolutely fantastic occasion. He's a very, very entertaining speaker if you ever get the chance to go and listen to him. So here we are down at the Quarry Theatre. Now this is a pretty new building to us. We bought, as you can see actually over the top of this structure behind me, we bought an old Moravian church about 10 years ago now, whose front opens up onto one of the main streets in Bedford, St Peter's. And we later converted this into a theatre which we opened in 2014. And it's been an unbelievable addition, not just to the school, but to the whole community. So we run the theatre ourselves and we own it, and all of our boys will have their drama lessons in here and will put on their plays in here and do their rehearsals in here. But we also run it as a town theatre, and we have up to 10,000 people come through the doors every year to often 3 or 4 events a week. Of a hugely wide-ranging nature. I mean, some of it is theatre, of course, and some of it is film or music or lectures and so on. So it's a 280 seat theatre, and it's something that we're particularly proud of. It's also given a huge boost, as you might imagine, to drama at the school. Drama was probably one of the areas that we felt needed a bit of a lift. We've since, well, as soon as we opened the building, we brought in drama scholarships, and that's helped lift the profile as well. We have scholarships in a whole different range of, well, virtually everything you can think of at the school, actually, to be honest. But drama scholarships were brought in. The quality of drama has not only gone up, but the number of boys doing drama at GCSEs and A-level has shot up as well. There's a whole new staff working with them in the theatre. And it's really a really exciting place to come to now if you're into theatre, and that's probably unusual in boys' schools generally, because if you're a boy who goes off to a mixed school, it's art and drama and music tend to be things which are dominated by girls, and of course if you're in an all boys school that doesn't matter. I mean there's no there's no gender divide or anything in an all-boys school. You just get on with doing things that you're interested in, and so happily people have a free and non-gender stereotypical choice when they're in a single-sex school, and we find that we've got boys not only acting obviously behind me here, but also as part of camera crews and tech crews and working front of house and working backstage and so on. So it's a great place for those guys to be. So this is another place I feel completely out of my depth. This is the DT department, and the DT department has these labs that run the whole length of the bottom of this building. It's huge and it's incredibly popular, and rightly so. And I would genuinely be surprised if this wasn't one of the best DT departments in the country. We've got some fantastic staff members here, and the results they get in the public exams are quite extraordinary. Actually, the boys are fanatical about it. And they make and do some pretty amazing things. I think as we walk out today, I don't know whether you'll see it on the film as we walk out, but we'll walk past a 3D printer that at the moment is printing visors for printing cradles rather for visors to be used down at the hospital. And there are a lot of schools doing this sort of thing, of course, but it's nice to be one of them. So if you do come and visit, and I hope you do, of course, come and spend a bit of time down here with the DT department, because they'll be able to really take you through this area. If the boys had to pick a heart to the school, this is probably it. This is the dining halls. This is what really matters. If you thought cooking for one or two at home was hard, try 1,100 boys. It's amazing. It's an amazing process. If you come on in, this is. I know I'm a bit biased now, but this is honestly the best school dining hall I've ever been in. I don't know if you can hear as I came from the corridor into here, but the acoustics are fantastic. The ceiling has been done in such a way that you can have a conversation across a table like this when there's 400 people in this room and not have to raise your voice. You can hear everything that's said. We've got the most extraordinary length of counter you can see, and in fact some more counters over here behind me. The food in here is absolutely fantastic. We are so lucky, and they never go short, I can tell you. So the boarders will have all of their meals in here, breakfast, lunch and dinner. The day boys can also have all of their meals if they want, but the lunch is included as part of the fees, and if they want to come to breakfast and dinner, they just have to sign in, and it's literally about a pound a meal, so it's not very much, and the breakfast goes the length of these counters, so it's pretty extraordinary. So we get a good turnout for those too. It's a sociable time of the day. We have a very long lunch break here. It's a boarding school, so we've got boys here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so it's a different pace of life in some ways to a day school, which is extremely frenetic. We do take our time at lunchtime. It gives the boys a chance to talk to each other, but it also gives the boys a chance to go out and do all sorts of other things, clubs, societies, sporting, academic, artistic, whatever it might be, at lunch, during their lunch break as well. So the day boys can get that into their day, and they can stay on afterwards as long as they like, or as short as they like. That's completely up to them.
Do the staff dine with the boys?
The staff do dine at the same time as the boys. They often don't dine with the boys. I mean, I make a point of it myself. It's one of those things in schools, I think, where different schools take different standpoints on this. You gain a lot by the staff dining together because they're sharing good practice, and they're talking about all sorts of things that are happening during the day together, and that's quite an important time for them. But of course, you lose the fact that you don't get the chance to sit down with boys and having a chat about their day during lunchtime. I do a bit of both, to be honest. I mix up my time between the staff table and the boys' tables. I certainly, if I come in at breakfast time and tea time, which I do relatively regularly, I'll sit with the boys then, because you hear some good stuff. You can see, actually, interestingly, at the moment, we've got the dining hall set out for social distancing. So this was partly at the end of last term, but also this term, where we've got key workers' children in, and we make sure that we spread all the staff and the pupils out. The staff, incidentally, they love coming back to school, of course, to see all their children, but they love it for all the food too. So that's it. We're back to the start again. It's been really good to have you with me. Thank you for coming round. It probably hasn't been as much fun as the real thing for you guys. So if you do want to get in touch with us, we'd love to see you here and give you a chance to show off our lovely school, hopefully when there's some boys around and there's a few more things to see. The details, I gather, are going to appear on your screen after I stop speaking, but thank you so much for taking the time to come round with me today.